Greetings, Star Citizens, and welcome to Flight Deck. I am your host, Link Static MDK, and with me, as always, is Paper Thin.
Yo,
We'll be discussing Star Citizen news like we always do, and we'll give a brief overview of everything that we talked about last week, just in case you want to go back and watch it. Talked about version 0.9.2, which finally came out. That's the revamp of all the control schemes. The FPS team for Star Citizen did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, which is pretty cool, and you should check it out. And we also talked a little bit about DC Animated Universe, DC movies, DC TV shows, and PAX, which came out after our show had aired. So this week, let's just jump right into it. So 0.9.2 came out, and for the most part, from what I've been reading on the forums, it's gotten some very positive reviews. There's still some complaints here or there, but for the most part, I hear a lot of people are happy with it.
yeah, everything I've seen for the most part is everybody agrees it's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, I tried it a little bit. I definitely have had way more fun than I was pre-patch with my gimbal Hornet weapons, and I like the way they updated the overall targeting. Like this new system, it seems a lot more futuristic and cool to me. Like it's hard to
Yeah,
explain, but like it definitely seems a lot better than those stupid yellow boxes they had before.
yeah, I totally agree. It makes it a lot more like just you're right, interesting to you know target you're leading the target still, but you're not just trying to target a yellow box out in the middle of space. You're trying to make your those little reticles that drop down off of your crosshairs,
Hmm.
target that ship, and then you fire on them, which is much more interesting and I think even more skillful.
Well, and the whole mechanic behind it is super cool. Especially, I wonder, like when we finally get multi-crewed ships out there and we're gonna have turreted weapons, are they gonna have a similar targeting for the turrets where you gotta kind of lead them a little bit and like line up the crosshair and all that stuff on those? That would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I've been wondering about that myself. I mean, would it make more sense to have this same mechanic for a turret, or is there going to be a different mechanic that they go with? Like, maybe they just revert back to the old golden box
Mm.
targeting system for turrets. That might work better for turrets. I don't know. I'll be curious to see how they go with it.
Well, on the one hand, I kind of feel turrets should be more accurate because all you're doing is targeting and shooting, right? But on the
Right.
other hand, I kind of want them to have a uniform targeting system between turrets and the cockpit. So, like, if all you've ever done before is fly, and suddenly you're hanging out with your friend, who's like, "Get in the turret," and you run there, you should be able to, pick it up instantly and know what you're doing.
That's a really good point. No, I would agree with you there. Actually, I would prefer that they do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was a lot of different mechanics, not only going with the targeting, but a lot of new mechanics that they've added with 0.9.2 as well. Like you've got a variety of control schemes people can use now, so it's not just oh you have to use a joystick and mouse. I mean that's still there, and I actually might try that out just to see how good it is. But you know.
Right.
There's a ton of new stuff that they've added. I like the visual change where your eyes will focus on a target in the distance now when you look towards it. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
And it's little things like that you might not notice right away that make a game like this awesome.
Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with adding more complexity to the game. I mean, a lot of people might be hesitant because of that. Fortunately, I don't think that's the case in the Star Citizen community. It seems like people are very pro complexity and options and a variance, that you have
Hmm.
different, that kind of thing. Um, but I really like the one mode where you can like zoom in kind of when you're further away, and your targeting kind of slows down. You can't maneuver as fast and you can't move your cursor as fast,
Yeah.
but you could more pinpoint accurate, which you're not using it very much. Every once in a great while you're going to use it in a dogfight, but when you can use it, just having things like that available to you really increase the skill cap and add a lot of nuance to the game.
Well, and when we start getting bigger ships into the game too, like, Idris's or even, freelancer transports,
Right.
something a little bit bigger that you can start targeting subsystems on is going to be huge.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty epic changes going with that, and also with the patch, we had a couple of new ships that became available. the Redeemer,
Yep.
which I bought pretty much as soon as it was available, and I did a little Twitch walk around with paper thin. So if people
Yeah, we
check
should
out
link
my,
to that.
yeah, it's on my Twitch channel in the recent broadcast, so people can check it out if they haven't done or haven't seen a full Redeemer walkthrough. It's pretty much just half hour of me going, I love this ship, over and over and over. Um,
Yeah,
and the Gladius also dropped. I haven't seen one in Hangar yet, except for their promotional shots, but
right.
that looks cool. That's a
It
cool
does.
looking ship.
Yeah, it reminds me of like an arrowhead. I really like the design.
You know what I
Very
thought
sleek.
when I first thought? I was like, oh, that's the X-Jet from X-Men,
Yes,
almost.
that's right.
It's like, oh, it's the X-Jet. Awesome. Let's get Storm and Cyclops and Wolverine, and let's all go.
Go fight space pirates.
That's not a bad thing by any means, though, because
No.
that ship looked cool too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite ships. I mean,
Mhm.
that was anytime you saw that ship show up, you know things were going down.
Especially like in the cartoon, you're like, oh man, X-Jet's here. Oh wait, they're just
Yep.
gonna fly towards something or away from it. They did very little in the cartoon with the X-Jet.
Right. I know.
Well, I guess the other thing that was announced this week that pretty much everybody has been talking about and going nuts over is the FPS module where they showed the demo at PAX. And if you haven't seen it, oh my God, I don't know of anybody who is into Star Citizen who probably hasn't seen it, but we'll include a link in our description below for you guys so you can check it out. It's definitely worth watching. So the one criticism I've heard, and this was just like our
We'll
organization.
start with this. We'll start with the
We'll
criticism. All
start with
right.
the criticism because we got a lot of good things to say. The one criticism I heard, and this was from a member of our organization just when we were all sitting around talking about it, was the level they showed off wasn't that amazing looking. Like it was kind of who cares? And I'd say that's a fair criticism. It was super dark. It was kind of hard to make out the individual people as they moved around. It didn't have any really cool geometry to it. I mean, it was a couple of hallways, a couple of rooms, a really big cargo room, but nothing
Right.
that like stood out geometry wise.
Yeah, and I personally was just so like happy with the demo in general that I just completely like glossed over that part. And then he
Hmm.
said that, and I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even notice the level.
Yeah,
The only time I noticed the level was when they mentioned the view when they looked out and looked at the asteroids through a window,
yeah,
and I
and
was like, yeah, that's kind of cool.
yeah, it is cool. Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge it because it's not like we saw a lot of that level. That level could be massive with tons of really cool rooms, and this is just a couple of easy rooms they chose to show off for PAX.
Right.
So, or this could
Or
be a level that's
yeah.
just a demo level that they're not going to
Yep.
use. So,
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm going to preempt you and say it first. But
Fine.
you know, so that's the one criticism that we felt we should mention. But there's a lot of really, really cool stuff that they were showing off. The breath mechanic for starters. I mean, it's a little thing, but the fact that you breathe heavier as you run and that fogs up your visor too is
Yeah.
it adds that level of realism where you're sitting in your room at like 10 o'clock at night playing the game, you just get fully immersed into it because you're like running and your guy starts breathing heavily.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's something that a lot of astronauts I've seen talk about, that the fact that you don't really realize your breath is going to show up and sometimes freeze on the front of your visor when you're out in space. And, I remember Chris Hadfield talking about when he did one of his first spacewalks, his entire visor like fogged up because he was crying, you
Oh,
know. So it's really interesting that they're adding this. I really like it. Again, it's more of the immersion stuff.
well, and like in general, I forget who the actor was, but I was listening to an actor talk about acting. He's like, you can tell a scene is really cold or not as if you can see the actor's breath in it. So,
Yeah.
it's little things like that which add a level of realism to any experience like this, which is just awesome, epic.
Yep.
I'm just gonna say awesome over and over again, and I apologize.
We need to get you a thesaurus.
Splendiferous. um,
Excelsior.
the other thing, in terms of like facial and bodily mechanic that was really cool was also the eye mechanic. That he went a little bit into talking about, and I kind of get where he's going. I'm not like an expert by any means, so if anybody feels they're an expert and wants to, you know, leave a message in the comments or link a reply video talking about it, feel free. The eye mechanics where they kind of render the eyes different from the rest of the avatar, so your eye and the camera will allow you to kind of keep a stable image that looks off into the distance, even though the rest of your frame will shake and move as it moves around.
Yeah, when I heard them start talking about that, like my eyes just kind of went wide, and I'm like, they're really going that far?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
oh my God, okay, that's awesome. Yes,
Hmm.
let's do this.
Well,
Like, let's be as
but
realistic as possible. Fuck it.
if you can, why not? You know, it just
Right.
add, and I wonder how that's going to work with the Oculus too. Like, how is
Oh
that
my
going
God.
to merge in with the Oculus when you finally get to use those? Are people going to be like, "Oh my God, this is like I'm actually there running around," or how is it going to work?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how good the Oculus support is. I have one. I have a DK1. I have a development kit one. So I'll be really curious to try it out in Star Citizen and see all this stuff firsthand.
Well, I also want to see how they handle the sound then, when you're in first person too, because if they're going that far with the visual, if they, you know, while you're wearing a headset, get the sound down perfect too, so that you can hear footsteps, you can hear, you know, talking, whatever, as if it's coming from the direction it's coming from, that would be really cool as well.
Yeah, I would assume that's going to be in there. There's a lot of games that have already done that before, so I would assume that's definitely going to be in there.
Yeah.
What would be really intriguing, and I can think of a way they can get around this, but what would be really intriguing is if they incorporated. There are certain dead zones in human hearing, especially like above and below us. We can't hear very well. And I wonder if they'll incorporate something like that. But that being said, I could see them getting around it, being like, oh, there's microphones on your spacesuit, and it,
Yeah.
sends it directly to your ears. I don't know. But anyway,
Reverberation, blah blah blah, yeah.
yeah, that's something I've never seen modeled very well in games because it usually just gives you a 360 degree of sound and funnels that into your headset so you can hear which direction it's coming from more or less and doesn't really care if it's up or down. So that'd be kind of cool if they did. That's like super nitpicky,
Hmm.
but
Well, and it's super nitpicky, but if they do it, I wouldn't be surprised given the level they're going with the vision that
yeah,
they would do something like that. You know, feel
yeah.
free to post that on the forums as an idea. You know,
I should, yeah.
yeah, if they're gonna incorporate it, now would be the time to do it.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. We'll see.
Well, other than, you know, obviously the quality of life stuff with the look and the vision and the movement and all this stuff, they also have a couple of items that they showed off, a couple of mechanics in terms of like we have portable shields that we can drop, we have EMP grenades that we can use, which will, you know, short circuit a person's system, so your magnetic boots won't work, your jetpack if you have one won't work, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think those are really cool ideas. Nothing super revolutionary there, but very necessary. I mean, you got to have options, and they got to be thinking, all right, in the future, you know, let's try and make this as realistic as possible. Let's try and really think about, how, infantry combat's going to work, and they're definitely going in the right direction. Those are all things that are very feasible.
Well, and I hope that they also add in, you know, some equipment that you haven't seen before. You know, if they can think of FPS mechanical guns that would exist in this universe that you haven't seen in a Halo or you haven't seen in a Counter-Strike or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, I think, it sounded like they had some ideas for stuff like that because I remember, I don't know if it was Christopher Roberts or one of the guys from Ilphonic talking about this, but most guns aren't going to affect your trajectory in zero G, as in, like, if I'm firing a gun, it's not actually pushing me back because, quite frankly, most guns aren't going to produce enough force to actually move you while you're in zero G. But they did mention that they do want to have some guns that do move you around in zero G. So that'll be interesting to see what their ideas for that are.
And yeah, in case you have not seen the FPS, they showed off zero G combat, which is why we
Yeah.
keep bringing it up. Which was really cool when they activated the zero G and all the little like tiny bits of the room started floating. That's one other nitpick actually. Why would it all have floated all of a sudden? It would have just stayed where it was until some force had acted upon it, right?
was the station that they boarded spinning centripetally?
We'll say
Like
yes,
that's
and
what I'm
then it would be
assuming, because
yeah.
then it would.
Okay.
That's what I'm assuming happened. I'm trying to remember when they flew in if it was spinning or not. And if it was, then it absolutely makes sense for that stuff to come off the ground. If it wasn't, then obviously no. Because I think it was an artificial gravity system that they deactivated, not, just
Mhm.
turning the centripetal force of the station spinning off.
I, who knows? If that's the case, then yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise, it was kind of weird to me that all of a sudden it would float. It looked really cool. Don't get me wrong,
Right,
and
right.
I'm not gonna complain if that happens every single time because it looks really cool.
It
Um,
does.
well, and with zero G combat, and I've played a couple of games where you've got jetpack flight and you've got running on walls and running on ceilings and stuff like that. Anytime you add another third dimension to the movement, it makes the combat just more crazy in general. Where it's like,
Yeah,
you know, it adds another dimension to the combat rather than just the running gun approach.
yeah, well, it reminds me of one of my favorite old school first person shooters, and that was the original Alien versus Predator, where you could run around on the walls as the alien. So, like, yeah, the human and the predator, you were limited to just running around on the floor, but the alien could actually climb the walls, climb up on ceilings, and then like drop down on you if you're not looking up and stuff like that. So it was really cool mechanic, and you're gonna have a similar kind of thing here when you're in zero G. You can flip upside down and go up on the ceiling if you want. It's all gonna be the same, right?
Well, I would love to like be on the ceiling with my magnetic boots activated and just kind of camp a room like that or secure a room so you're not on the ground. So when they round the corner and are expecting to see you, you know, you just shoot them from above where they weren't looking.
Yeah, I'd be curious if the magnetic boots are strong enough to overcome the normal gravity. I don't know. I haven't, that's something I can't remember them ever discussing. If you'll be able to like walk up a wall in normal gravity.
I,
I
I,
wouldn't think so.
I would bet there's probably going to be like a special upgrade that would make them, you know, like,
Maybe, yeah.
and if they're not, oh well. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna.
Oh, what we could use grappling hooks. Need grappling hooks.
Every ever since we played this mod for the original Jedi Knight on computer called Catwalks, and we had grappling hook mod enabled on too. It's like every FPS we play, we always are like, we need grappling hooks, just because it's so fun.
It's so ridiculous. Just flying around, just like yanking yourself from wall to wall, and it's
That's
totally unrealistic.
Oh
But
yeah, that's the problem is they give us grappling hooks in this game, and you literally have one shot, and then you're like, oh, this isn't
yeah,
as fun.
right. It's not going to be nearly as cool.
It's not going to be like Spider-Man.
No, exactly.
But that's why you get a second grappling hook in your other hand.
Yeah, exactly. But
Uh,
that aside, I do think it's really cool that Christopher Roberts did mention that you'll be able to push off of walls and do that kind of stuff to kind of change your trajectory. What I'm really interested to see is if like I can like maneuver myself up to floating debris and like grab onto it and like grab it and like spin it in front of me or something to use
use
it
it
as
as cover.
cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Get all Ender's Game up and
Well, and it would be really cool too if like you have a rocket launcher and there's like a floating box and somebody runs next to it, you can shoot the box into them or that type of thing too.
yeah, exactly. The force from the rocket hitting the box like smacks him into the wall and kills
Yeah.
him.
Well, and I think even in the FPS demo, they showed a little bit of like pushing off walls, and that's how those guys were getting around. I could be mistaken on that. That's what it looked like a little.
Yeah, it did look like there was at least a little, or maybe they just had the maneuvering jets on. It looked like they were pushing a little bit though.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
Well, the best part of the whole video for me, though, is at the very end after everybody's dead and there's that one floating body that's just kind of like space cartwheeling
Oh my
through the
gosh,
room.
it's so funny.
It's like, in space, nobody can hear you cartwheel. And he's just going around in a circle. Oh, it was good times.
It was. I gotta wonder if that was planned or not. Like, I
Yeah,
really am
that's
curious.
one of those things where it was like almost too epic. Like it might be
Right.
fake because it was too funny. You know? Oh man.
Regardless, it was still good. So all that being said, there is a really good that I just found today earlier, right before we were gonna record. a really good overview of the FPS reveal by a YouTuber who goes by Hopping Mad Media, and we'll link that in the comments afterwards. You can check out his video. I thought he did a really good job of covering everything that was in the FPS reveal. So
I have not seen that one, so I'm gonna have to check it out
yeah,
myself because I always like it when the community puts out content like that, where it's like, oh, what about this? What about that? And like stuff you never would have thought of that they cover themselves is always super interesting.
yep, exactly. Yeah, he's the one where I got the idea for the using floating debris as as a cover or other mechanics with it.
Well, and
He kind of got sparked that in my mind.
the other thing about the debris too is the amount of damage the debris will be able to take. Because there'll
Right.
be, I assume, differences between a glass container and a metal crate. For
Right. You would definitely think so. I mean, because when they talked about being able to damage certain things inside of ships and wherever you are when you're in FPS mode, it sounded like walls were pretty much undamageable for the most part, depending. Obviously glass is you can break it. We saw it in the video. But yeah, I would think items like that, like just like a metal chest floating around, well, you shoot it enough, eventually it's gonna, not be able to withstand the barrage.
yeah, for sure. Well, and I would be interesting if the different guns have different effects for the various items too. Like, the microwave cannon, does it matter if you're standing behind a metal thing, or is that even worse? You know?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It depends. It depends. This is getting super nerdy here. It depends on like the frequency of the microwaves and some other things. Like, because if you put metal in a microwave, like aluminum, for example, you put it in a microwave, like
And we do
it
not
starts.
advocate doing this.
Yeah, don't
Don't
please
do this.
please don't do
Disclaimer.
this. But if you've ever seen a video of people putting a CD in a microwave and it it starts to sparkle and crack with electricity flowing over it, and will items do that? Will they kind of get electrified because the microwaves are hitting it? Similar to what happens when you put aluminum in a microwave, something like that. I'd
Yeah.
be curious to see that.
That would be cool actually if the metal of like the suits people are wearing sparkle and crack and break down and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I noticed like the one guy in the FPS demo got his helmet shot off, for example, and
Yes.
so if you can damage the suits and then like expose people to vacuum, that would be pretty dirty, but also
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That would be really cool. I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of options for what you can do, which is again seems to be their MO. I mean, we were talking about it earlier
Mm.
with the new, point 9.2 update. They want to have as much, flexibility in your options as possible, which is super awesome.
So I wonder what's to stop people from putting like an explosive remote on a wall that's destructible to vacuum into space, and then as soon as the enemy team runs in, throw a frag grenade on them to mess up all their suits, and then vacuum the atmosphere. You
Right.
know,
No, yeah, I think that would be a viable tactic. I'm sure.
man, I want to try all this stuff out now. That's the problem when the FPS came out. I'm like, I want to play it now.
Yeah.
Why do I
Now
have
we
to
gotta
wait
wait
till
till
like March or
March.
April or whatever?
Yeah.
I need to play
I'm
it
going more
now.
with April. Yeah.
Well, just given their history, I'm gonna go with May. Which I'm fine with. If it comes out in May, I'll play it in May. It doesn't
Right
matter.
around our birthdays.
Oh, that would be sweet. That would be a nice birthday present to me. Is the FPS module.
Yep.
Well, and then I know that Drake Herald also came out. That one, it, it's ugly.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
I don't like the way it looks, but I totally get why it looks the way it does.
Yeah, it's super ugly, but it's really kind of neat in its ugliness. Like I kind of like it in a way. Like I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's very different from the rest of the ship, so therefore it's kind of endearing to me in
It's
its
like
own
the
way.
Winnebago from Spaceballs, right?
Yeah, I was actually like thinking earlier. It's like people were like, "What kind of ships don't we have yet?" And I'm like, "Space Winnebagos."
Oh
Now we
man,
kind of do. Maybe. It's
what kind of ships don't we have? Ugly ones. Now we do. Well, and then there's also the Tyrannus system that they announced recently too.
Yep.
That one I have not heard that much about. You want to take that one?
Yeah, yeah. So I read up on it. it's a system that's close to Earth or Terra, and it's supposed to be kind of like a safer way to get back to Earth to deliver goods to and from Earth. The only safer meaning safer from pirates and stuff. Um, because I think there's more UEE presence there or something like that. It's kind of they're kind of vague about it, honestly.
So is it like a
Um,
major jump point thing, or how is that? Like, I wonder if there's going to be like these are UE
yeah,
patrol jump points, and this is one of the main
I don't know.
hubs.
I think maybe the jump points around it are UEE patrolled. Maybe that might be the right way to say it, because it says in the description that it allows you to avoid certain pirate systems or nexuses or something like that. So basically, by going through this system, you're avoiding certain pirate, more lawless areas. That being said, there is a trade-off to that, being that there's two asteroid belts that you have to fly through to get to the other jump point to get back to Earth.
So
So
I wonder if those asteroids are going to have a lot of pirate activity then, or players posing as pirate activity in them, since you
yeah,
know,
they said there probably would be some, but it'd be harder for pirates to get there because they have to go through UEE controlled space to get there.
interesting. Well, and that's something I've actually been thinking about is if you have a large ship and you're not a pirate, but you're friends with a bunch of pirates that, can fit their tiny ships in your hangar, can you like sneak them past the UEE, unload all their stuff, let them be the bad guys, and then just take a little bit of reward as in exchange for the safe passage in and out of systems like that?
Yeah, I seem to remember Chris Roberts talking about this at one point, and he basically said that, okay, so if it's your ship, that's what mostly gets flagged, but if you get inspected or, for whatever reason they scan your ship, like do a deep scan or something, and you don't have very good shielding, or something like that, then if they see that you have, those pirate things on there, then you could get in trouble for it. But if they don't scan your ship, then if they just see, oh, this ship's friendly with us, we don't need to bother with it.
So you need like
Then you could
a
do that.
Millennium Falcon level sneaky compartment so you can hide your Wookiee friend and your Jedi Knight and all that and
Right,
right.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So I think that's a pretty good way to do it.
If you're willing to make the investment and you can get a ship to that level, why not do it? I mean, it's probably good cash to transport pirates in and out of heavily patrolled systems because, there are going to be players that are stuck not being able to go into a system, but, they can hire you and you can charge whatever you feel like to take them.
Yeah, that would actually be really fun. I mean, that's a really fun smuggling mechanic. So I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting when we get into the persistent universe and seeing all the little professions like this pop up that maybe they weren't initially intending to have, but now all of a
Right.
sudden people are trying them out.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. I mean, with a game of this scope, there's going to be tons of unintended, consequences. It's going to be really cool to see what people do and figure out.
is consequences the right word or just awesomeness? Yeah.
They're synonyms.
Synonyms. Well, and there's also the weapons and ships breakdown, which I think we'll have a link to in the description. This is something that you actually added recently, and I didn't get a chance to check out.
Yeah, so I found this, it might have been yesterday or the day before, where a guy put together a Google Doc. And so what this guy's doing is he goes out in Arena Commander with a friend, excuse me, and they take all the different weapons and test them out for how much damage they do, their rate of fire, how much power they drain out of your power system, as best they can with the information that you're given currently in Arena Commander. So they go through all the weapons and do that, and then they test all the shield performances of all the ships to see how much damage their shields can take. They're not dealing with armor or anything like that right now, just because there's
Well,
no real way to tell.
and we don't really have armor yet in the game. I mean, you've got default
Yeah,
hull, but that's it.
right. You've got default hull and you've got hard points that can be blown off, but that's it.
Hmm.
So it's a really interesting guide. Really shows you kind of, um, it also does the distance of the weapons and all that stuff. So kind of gives you a good idea of what weapons you'll want to be using for certain situations.
Yeah, that's super cool, actually. Like that they're
Yeah.
doing that already without any official numbers or anything out there that people can check out is pretty in depth, I'd say.
Yeah, these guys must have spent a lot of time on this because it's really in depth and it's really awesome.
You know, that makes me feel bad because when we have free time, we play stuff like Heroes of the Storm and
Yeah.
D&D together and stuff like that. It was like, no, we should be doing this. You know?
Well, we tried to. Let's be fair. We tried to test out if we could kill an EVA pilot
hmm
with guns currently in Arena Commander, and we could never get it going because the game kept crashing us to desktop or to
Well,
the
not
hangar. I
to
mean,
Hanger, yeah. Like we
yeah,
we tried the private match like 3 times that day. That's the frustrating thing, and that's what they need to have a lobby for. If the
yep,
same thing happened with a lobby, we would have kept trying.
right.
Because it would have been like, oh well, at least it didn't take us forever just to connect to each other.
Right, and it just takes so long to read out the friend codes
hmm
and then restart it and get Arena Commander going again, and it's a real hassle right now. So
Was
I'm very looking forward to lobbies.
was that M as in Mike or N as in Nick or yeah,
Yeah, M is in Mancy.
M as in Nancy? Oh yeah, that's the thing I hate the most. Like, it takes me back to like the old school connecting to each other's IP and
Oh,
all that stuff, which
oh man,
nostalgia factor, but that's not a good nostalgia.
no, it's a oh my god, how was I this patient when I was 10 years old factor?
That's because you had no choice back then. It was like
No,
this or
it's true.
nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So happy my parents had a second phone line so I could use that to play games on and not like have them pick up the phone and be like, I'm playing
Mom,
games, mom.
Mom, I'm
Mom.
playing games. What are you doing? I'm getting fragged. Oh man.
But yeah, so I thought it was interesting you mentioned Heroes of the Storm. So I just got into the alpha for that
Yes, it's
last
almost like
week.
I mentioned that on purpose.
Yes,
Mm.
it seems how you did that.
Yes.
Uh,
Segue.
yeah, so I got into that. For people who don't know, that's Blizzard's new MOBA type game, similar to League of Legends, Dota, those kind of games. Um, and it's only an alpha right now. There's probably about 30, 35 champions in it. Those are the characters you play in a MOBA. So, spoiler warning, I'm going to talk about a MOBA, so if you don't really understand them, then you might just want to skip ahead like a minute. Um,
Or two.
yeah, so it's really interesting. I've only played a little bit of it, but I do like it. There's no like items to buy like there is in Dota and League of Legends. Um, and you just level up skills, but at each skill level you get like 4 options to choose from. Once you choose one of those options, that's it. That's the one option you get for that skill level. And then like 3 levels later you get to pick again. You pick one, that's the only one you get to choose out of that subset, et cetera, until you're like level 20. What's really cool is you level as a team, not individually, which again is different than the other ones.
hmm
So that I really like that. It makes it more team focused, and it doesn't it doesn't encourage kids to just play a certain role and just try to
Level up
get as many
fast.
kills
Yeah.
right and get as many kills as possible and just carry the team on their back, so to speak. You don't really get that a lot.
Well,
It still happens, but
that's kind of reminiscent to a StarCraft game type called Star Battle. You didn't have equipment in that either, but you would level up either parts of your ship, like you'd make your ship go faster, or you'd unlock a new skill like Yamato Cannon or whatever.
yeah,
So
that's basically how Heroes of the Storm works.
that's
So
pretty cool.
yeah, some other minor differences. You for the turrets, they have ammo, so they actually can run out of ammo from like shooting minions and stuff.
No! This
Yeah,
thing's got to run out of ammo sometime.
yeah, exactly. Which I find to be pretty cool. And it definitely encourages you to like push waves and be aggressive. And I like that a lot. And there's a lot of different destructible environments, like there are walls you can destroy and different parts of the base to destroy. So it's a little more complicated than at least League of Legends in that respect, where League
Mhm.
basically has a couple turrets and your Nexus and you know the inhibitor in between, and that's it. This has a lot more buildings to destroy and interact with.
Well, and
So that's cool.
I watched you play it a bit, and I think the thing that was coolest to me was the fact that you have, you know, Warcraft champions, you have Starcraft champions, you have Diablo champions. It's not just one franchise; it's all of them combined, which is pretty sweet. I never thought I'd see like Kerrigan versus Malfurion Storm Rage or something like that.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of is Stephen King's Dark Tower series, where he kind of brings together all of his novels into this one epic 7-book fantasy series, and
Hmm.
all of his novels like interact in really interesting ways. And it's kind of like that, where all these Blizzard universes combine and interact with each other, which is really cool. So overall, I really like it. The game very heavily encourages good micro compared to like League, for example, because in League, you know the distances and you know to stay safe
Right.
and in Heroes of the Storm, what I'm noticing is that the distances are much shorter, and therefore you really have to be more precise with your movement and your attacks and your skills and that kind of thing. So I like that a lot too. So I think it's a really cool game, and I would sign up for the beta if you're interested in MOBAs. It's a good game.
Yeah, I signed up. I want to say yesterday, so hopefully I'll get the beta and relatively soon.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it definitely looks like something that's pretty cool, but I don't know if I'm gonna like get into it as I did with League or any of that.
right.
It's
Who
tough. I have
knows?
to try it and see how the mechanics play out.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't played a ton of it, but so far so good.
Well, other than that, some cool movie news we've got that's come out too. For people in our generation and a little bit older, there's Bill and Ted 3, where it'll probably be a most excellent adventure, I would say. Just like just like the first two.
That's
Yeah. Like
that's a
on the
pretty
one hand, I'm
accurate
like,
description.
do we need a Bill and Ted 3? And then the other hand, why do we not need a Bill and Ted 3? Like it's one of those movies where it's like so ridiculous, but it's also kind of a feel good movie because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nostalgic. It's fun. There's nothing serious about it, and therefore, if they make a third one, who gives a crap if it's bad? You know what I mean?
Well, it's not like the first two were ever a shining example of modern cinema or anything.
No,
It's not like,
they were
I
bad.
I went. I wanted to become an actor because I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I don't think anybody's ever said that.
I sure hope not.
The only downside is George Carlin's not going to be in this one.
That's true. That is so sad.
Aw.
He was good at those. That's true.
Rufus! Well, then, in keeping with that, we also have Dumb and Dumber 3, which is our generation and a little younger. So it's it's two ridiculously silly movies coming back for
Yeah.
today's audience.
Yeah, even though I question whether Dumb and Dumber 3 should actually be like should it actually be Dumb and Dumber 2? Because the other one was so like bad and it was a prequel and it was weird.
Uh, yeah, I,
I
I
don't.
I caught it once on like TNT or TBS or one of those channels that plays movies in the
Ugh.
middle of the day, and like I couldn't tell you a thing about it. I really couldn't. I don't remember anything that happened in that movie like I do the
It was
first one.
I don't either. It was really bad, and I tried to watch it, and I got maybe 30 minutes in, and I'm like, I have my life is more important than this. Like, there are better things to do right now.
Uh, it's like when I tried to watch Geely, and like
Oh,
I went on my way. I'm like, this movie is so bad, I gotta watch it just because it's been so bad. So I got myself some popcorn, got myself a drink, got myself a lazy boy, got myself a couple of hours, nothing going on. I sit down, I get 5 minutes in, and I stop watching and get up and walk out. Like I like over prepared to the point where it's like I just can't do it. I psyched myself out or something. I just couldn't watch more than 5 minutes.
I that's one that I won't even touch. No, no.
Well, and then the last thing I'm gonna let you introduce.
Yeah. So a really intriguing announcement in the comic book slash manga world. Apparently, Marvel is doing a crossover with the Attack on Titan uh, series. So for people who don't know, Attack on Titan is an extremely popular manga slash anime that's very popular over here in the States too. It's about people who fly around with these 3D maneuvering gear that attach to walls and shoot out grappling hooks, and they fly around and try to kill giant Titan things. So anyway, Marvel is doing a crossover with them and it's coming out in a couple weeks in Japan. It's going to be a manga, I believe, and it's going to be where the Titans, the 30 to 50 meter tall, humanoid type things, attack the Marvel universe. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how that goes.
Well, what I just realized when you mentioned the grappling hooks, do you think that's why we like Attack on Titan so much is because of the grappling hooks?
That could be, that very well could be. I do really like Attack on Titan a lot.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with that.
Well, and I know they're also talking about making a live action movie for Attack on Titan as well. That was in the
Yes.
works too. So, you know, hopefully it will be pretty badass because the anime series, if you haven't checked it out, is a pretty good anime series. I have to say, it's very high quality, and the manga is super close to what they show in the series. I've read the manga after I was introduced to it by the series, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually almost identical. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if you're not a big anime fan, maybe you've seen Cowboy Bebop and liked that, and like Trigun or some other series like that you thought were pretty good, but you can't really stand the cutesy, girly stuff and the weird tropes and the that kind of thing. Attack on Titan does none of that. Attack on Titan is very straight laced. It's very, it tries to be as real as it can to its own universe, and there's none of the not a lot, I shouldn't say none, but not a lot of the typical tropes that you see in a lot of anime. So it's really good in that respect. Very adult and high quality.
And if you're more into like a comedy version, you can always watch the Team Four Star abridged Attack on Titan, which does like the first 5 episodes in a very humorous manner, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's very funny.
Um, other than that, they did release the full video of PAX. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, you can go on YouTube and they'll actually have the full PAX demo there. That includes the FPS module, and the FPS stuff is split out separately. So if you only have interest in that, you can check that out as well. They've gone ahead and released both of those. All right.
Yeah, other than that, I don't think there's much that CIG has coming up here for us.
Yeah, they only released a ton of stuff this week. It
Yeah,
was kind of crazy with the amount of content that came at us this week alone. It was wow, we've got packs, we've got FPS, we've got control mapping schemes, we've got new
yep.
ships in the hangars, we've got, equipment that they've shown off, they've got, all of this various stuff that just dropped within like a 7 day period that now is making everybody go nuts and try out and check out.
Yeah, we hit the 60 million mark, I believe,
Oh yeah,
for fundraising. So
didn't mention that we have even more money now in this game than we had even a week ago. So
yeah, it's
it'll,
awesome.
it'll be interesting to see what the new funding goals come out for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, that's it for this week's episode, and we'll see you guys next week on the flight deck.
Peace.